listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1.
Thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Tuesday, October the 22nd. I am your host, Tom Ernest. On today's show, we will talk about the return of Tua Tagovailoa and what he said in his press conference. Braxton Berrios is out for the season, and Cam Smith returning, and what that means for the team going forward. A little bit of information from the fallout from the loss of the against the Indianapolis Colts, and are the Dolphins buyers or sellers as we approach the trade deadline, which is 2 weeks from today. Before we get into any of that, a read from our sponsor, Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, Miami Heat, the Miami Hurricanes, Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey, a birthday gift, or the newest hat to hit the market of your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear.com for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. If you're not in South Florida, no worries. Visit Caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your home, and they'll ship to you. International fans too. Caneswear.com is the spot. The Miami fan shop. That's Caneswear.com. Caneswear.com. All right, let's get into it. First and foremost, we are going to discuss Tua Tagovailoa's return and his return to the local media with the Miami Dolphins. If you haven't had a chance, go to the Miami Dolphins YouTube channel and click on Tua's press conference. As it was announced by Mike McDaniel, he will be returning from injured reserve with expectation he will be on the field Sunday against the Arizona Cardinals. The tone of the press conference felt weird, in my opinion. Again, if you haven't heard it, go to the YouTube page and click on it. You hear it for yourself. So Tua gets reintroduced after Mike McDaniel's press conference, and the local media, I think, did a pretty good job asking these questions to Tua, but Tua was not his normal jovial self. I would say salty Tua wasn't there. This is pissed off Tua. And for the life of me, I'm trying to figure out why he was so pissed off when getting these questions from the local media. Because they were valid questions. They were questions regarding his health status. There were questions regarding, the concern from the fan of the football team, as well as national media pundits, of course, who have been talking about his calls for retirement and things like that. So I'll get into some of the pieces. I know yesterday Mike kind of dove in and gave his thoughts. Let me give you my thoughts on this as well. He was asked, so they cleared you from concussion. About how long have you been symptom-free for, and how long have you been cleared from that concussion? To his response, I would say for myself, I'd been symptom-free for the next day after the game. And then follow-up, so all of the, what was it like for you? I don't know how much attention you'd pay to it when so many people in the outside world are saying he should retire, don't play, this and that, while you're symptom-free the next day. To his response, quote, I wasn't paying attention to any of it. None of it. In the last follow-up question to that, you said the last time you had a concussion discussion with your family in the offseason. Did that discussion come up in the last month? Nope. None of that. All right, we'll start here. Again, the tone of the answer is really kind of raised my eyebrows a little bit. I'm like, all right, this is not the same Tua that we have heard over the last, 5 years, really, in Miami. If he was symptom-free from the next day after, the Dolphins, and I'll get into that actually in a few minutes, the Dolphins put him on injured reserve based on the medical advice they received from neurologists. So if you recall, Tua was placed on injured reserve a few days after the game against the Bills. So they received enough information to make that call. And based on the response and the tone from Tua, it just seems like he was not happy. He was placed on injured reserve for the concussion, clearly because he was traveling with the team 10 days later to Seattle, and he looked completely fine on the sideline. So obviously there might be a little bit of disdain from Tua towards Mike McDaniel and team management for doing what they did. We get into the next. He was asked about the Guardian cap. Will you wear it? Devon Achane wore one. He was off a concussion 14 days prior. Tua, will you wear one? Nope. Quote, nope. Why? Personal choice. Follow-up, will this change the style of your play, your decision to scramble and things like that? His answer, just got to be smart, that's it. Just got to be smart. My entire time playing football, I've been a competitor, and that is or was sort of my edge when I would run in high school, even in college. I would do the same thing. But it's a professional setting. This is a professional level. The best of the best. You just can't be doing that. So definitely got to stay more available for the team, for the organization, for our guys. All right. So Tua changed his style of play in 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, the man put on some weight. People were calling him, quote, Tubby Tua. He changed his style of play. He learned the art of falling. He did not scramble at all last year and led the league in passing. He loses weight, decides to lower his head, takes a natural football contact, and gets a concussion. So, I hope he put on some weight. What caused the concussion? Was it hitting Damar Hamlin or when you hit your head on the ground? Tua says, I don't know. Is that a good answer to that question? I don't know. Like I said, pissed off Tua was in full effect in this press conference. He was also asked, how frustrated are you to have to go through this again and have to answer all of these questions again? It's going to be something that we'll probably ask you about. Tua says, hey, I'm frustrated, but this is what it is. Do I want to be known for this? No, I don't. But that's the cards I've been dealt with given the history of it, so it is what it is. He was asked, what have you learned about this process? Tua says that it's not good to get concussions. Oh my God. All right. We're going to go further down the list here. He was asked, do you think you should have been put on injured reserve? Like I said at the top when I started. Pissed off Tua. It did not seem like he was happy with the decision. Here's his answer. What I do know is that I think that team did what was best in the interest of me, knowing that I'm a competitor, and given what the doctors have told me, that having a substantial amount of time to rest and recover would have been good for me. I think they did what was best in terms of protecting myself from myself. That was a team answer fed to Tua for him to answer to the local media. A little bit further down, it was asked, is there a scenario ever where you would envision yourself blowing back in terms of how much doctors say you should miss? Because you obviously want to continue playing. It's your life. It's your decision. Would there ever be a time where they'd say, because you've had so many, you need to sit out 5 or 6 weeks, and you would say, no, I'm not sitting out that length of time? Or do you think you should always defer to what the doctors advise with timetables? Tua's response, again, pissed off Tua, Man, I just think it's based off whatever that individual feels. If you feel like you can go, you can go. This is only, and I just think this is only becoming a thing just because of what ended up happening 2 years ago for myself within the sport. I hate that it's happened, but we don't look at boxers the same way. We don't look at hockey players the same way. But I think just because of what happened in that magnitude, that it's becoming more of an issue here in the league. My friend, my quarterback, we look at boxers the same way. We look at hockey players the same way. Hell, the NHL this year says if your helmet falls off in the middle of a play, and you could be scrambling on a power play to score a goal, if your helmet comes off, you go off the ice. Even if you grab your helmet, you have to go off the ice. Put your helmet back on, and then you may come back in to the ice to play. I was shocked when I heard that on NHL opening night. And if you don't watch hockey, don't worry about it. I'm just rambling at this point. So in the end, Tua has decided he's going to continue to play. That is his choice. He is not the savior of this franchise, of this season. And the Dolphins are going to have a decision to make in March. But the fact he's not going to wear the Guardian cap and he's not going to give himself a little bit extra protection. Now, Ghost of Adam Gase, good friend to our show, as well as obviously a great guy, and also over at the Dive Bar Pod, which has been doing great things. If you're not following the Dive Bar Pod, please be sure to do so on pretty much anywhere where you can subscribe to podcasts. I want to give them a plug, but he sent out something in regards of research regarding the Guardian cap, and if it does give you a bit more protection and prevent concussions, the answer is it does not prevent concussions. It may reduce risk of concussions, but it will not prevent you from getting a concussion. So Tua deciding not to wear the Guardian cap is his decision because based on the research, it may not stop a concussion from happening. So, moving on. For the Tua talk, let's get into some injury news. Braxton Berrios left the game against the Colts on Sunday, and it was confirmed on Monday that he has a torn ACL in his knee, and he is officially out for the season and essentially ending his time with the Miami Dolphins as he was back on a one-year contract. I don't believe he provided enough value for him to come back, but if Chris Grier is the general manager of the football team, he'd probably be back. So where does the team go from there to replace Braxton Berrios? Well, you're not replacing offensive production. The man had 0 catches. So you're not replacing anything in regards of offense, but from a return game, I would look to say that there's a chance that we're going to see either a player like Eric Ezukanma being signed off the practice squad to suit up, possibly as a return guy, because at this point he has provided nothing on offense, or we could see Malik Washington, who has experience in return game, who take his reps. As long as I don't see Devon Achane back there, that's all that matters. Also news, Cam Smith, this was his final week to come off of injured reserve. He takes Braxton Berrios' spot on the roster, and he is now on the active roster, ready to go. Now, what does that mean for the team? Well, there is a ton of depth right now in regards of the defensive backfield because there's not a myriad of injuries going on currently with the team outside of Javon Holland, who was limited all week and then doubtful for the game. There's a chance that he could play at Arizona. It just depends on pain tolerance and if that swelling has continued to go down. Mike McDaniel, in his press conference before Tua's, so I won't get into anything regarding Tua in that conversation in context because it was pretty much talked about with the horse's mouth, so to speak, with Tua. But he was asked, do you have a sense of who is the backup in the game this week for Tua? He says, not as of yet. It will be determined. Some information still needs to be gathered, a.k.a. Tyler Huntley which is the follow-up question, which I'll get to here. And I heard you guys didn't want to wait like 6 or 7 tonight for this press conference. Haha, Mike McDaniel, funny guy. Your team's 2-4. Follow-up question was, is it your sense that Tyler Huntley's injury might be season-ending? He says, my sense is I have no senses about it yet. It went from, all right, we'll keep you updated and abreast on whether or not he can come back into the game, to he will not be coming back into the game. So there's still some stuff going on with the evaluation process, and I'll make my determination on that alongside with the coaching staff and Chris Grier. That will probably come tomorrow, where I'm kind of making those thoughts out. If you could read between the lines, it's not looking good for Tyler Huntley. Most likely it'll be back to the Tim Boyle show as the backup quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, with Skylar Thompson most likely the emergency quarterback for the team. So my expectation is we'd likely see Tyler Huntley placed on injured reserve, and the Dolphins just obviously bringing Tua off injured reserve and opening up that spot with a quarterback move, which will be Tyler Huntley, in my opinion. So we'll see that maybe by today, which is Tuesday, but nothing for sure just yet. Before I get into the last topic, which is the big one, are the Dolphins buyers or sellers? A big shout out to everybody listening over at finheaven.com, the largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. Also, a big shout out to everybody over at the Facebook group, I Am a Miami Dolphins Fan, run by the great and talented Carlos Hernandez. If you're on Facebook, be sure to check that page out. All right, I made it up. I'm not done yet with the fallout from the Colts game. I want to quickly dive into who's to blame for the complete meltdown against the Colts. Now, we can always finger point to Chris Grier, which deservedly so. We could point it to Mike McDaniel, deservedly so. But in this moment, after watching that game again in disgust, I'm putting it a 110% on the players. And after the game, when the players were speaking to the media, the players were talking about accountability. We got to have accountability. Accountability, accountability, accountability. Say that 10 times fast. Accountability. Well, there is no accountability on that Miami Dolphins sideline. Why? Because the players are being put back in the game. That's a coaching issue. Julian Hill, Durham Smythe, Raheem Mostert being put back into football games after critical mental mistakes. Alec Ingold, same thing. Now, can you punish everybody for the entire game? No. But you got to sit guys down. You got to give other guys opportunity. Like Tanner Conner can take reps from Durham Smythe. Right? Let's see what else these guys can do. Maybe they're not going to draw penalties that are going to negate 10-plus yard plays. In an offense that's struggling, it is mind-numbing to still see 101 mistakes, holding penalties, illegal shifts, offside by Jonnu Smith. I'll give him a pass because the guy had a good game against the Colts. He was the only guy getting targets in that game against the Colts. But players are talking about accountability, not holding themselves to accountability. What accountability is it on the sideline when you have two receivers who aren't doing a damn thing, laughing it up, with Mike McDaniel laughing with him? Who's holding those guys accountable? Clearly, because they're superstars on the team, just paid, freshly minted contracts in the offseason. They don't have to be held accountable for piss-poor play without Tua throwing them the football. Because that's what you're getting out of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. All right. Enough of the Colts. Let's talk about the trade deadline that's coming in 2 weeks and what to expect for the Miami Dolphins. Are they going to be buyers or are they going to be sellers? Well, I am here to tell you with certainty that the Miami Dolphins, no matter what happens against Arizona, should and will be sellers at the trade deadline. Here is my reasoning behind it. The Dolphins' issues cannot be addressed in season. What are those issues? We know those issues. Interior offensive line play, which has been okay, but the talent's not there. Wide receiver 3 depth, backup quarterback issues, and nothing to show for in regards of interior defensive line, which, again, I will give a pass to the defense because they're ranked in the top 5 this season. As much as people want to crap on the rush defense, they're still ranked 18th in the league in rush defense, giving up 130.7 yards per game. So they're mid-pack. They're average at stopping the run in comparison to the rest of the league. This league has been turned upside down when it comes to passing because teams are starting to run again. And speaking of pass defense, the Dolphins are number 1 in the NFL in pass defense. So they get a pass. But you can't fix the issues in season. So how can you fix the issues long term? Whether it's Chris Grier or not, you have to trade some of these players that you're either A, not going to be able to re-sign, or B, has value and someone younger waiting in the wings to take snaps. So, for me, the Dolphins are sellers at the trade deadline. Who are the names? Well, it's clear who the names are, but what kind of value can you get for these players? Terron Armstead, we'll start there, has turned back the clock. Not only has he been fairly healthy through the season, he is one of the best left tackles in football right now. He is playing like a man possessed. What can the Dolphins get for Armstead? He is signed through next year. Remember, they revised his contract. He is signed through next year. What kind of value can you get for a left tackle who's playing absolutely tremendous football right now? Well, for me personally, because of his age and his contract, I would say at least you can get a conditional 5th or a conditional 6th that can go to a 5th depending on if he hits incentives. What team could be in the market? Well, I would probably say, number one, the Bengals are on the way back. And I mentioned this months ago when the Dolphins were already flatlining. That Armstead to the Bengals could make sense if Orlando Brown's injury can keep him out for a long period of time. Because the Bengals, they traditionally, under the Joe Burrow era, have started slow. Now they are on a little bit of a win streak. They are sitting at 3-4. So they're in the mix for the playoffs. And they just lost their left tackle. That could be a target. Conditional 6 probably gets it done. You move Armstead's money off the books, and you begin to play Patrick Paul, who is, at this point, the heir apparent to Terron Armstead. Emmanuel Ogbah, great story. Dolphins didn't want him. They signed him back because of need. You can get a 7th-round pick for Emmanuel Ogbah. He's on a cheap 1-year contract. There's teams out there that can definitely use a pass rusher. Running back. How about Raheem Mostert? How about Jeff Wilson Jr.? One of those two guys can be had. What does it look like? Well, we know the 49ers are still without Christian McCaffrey. They've had injuries. Jordan Mason's banged up. He did play against the 49ers. Washington Commanders ring a bell. Dallas Cowboys clearly need a starting running back because they don't run the ball. 5th or 6th round pick for either of those guys is on the table. I think Kendall Fuller's an option as trade target. There's going to be teams looking for cornerback depth. I would also throw in Jevon Holland. Now, this is a very touchy topic for Miami Dolphins fans because of Jevon Holland's play. He's a very good safety. There's no doubt about it. But the Miami Dolphins and the current general manager, who may still be here making the decisions, I'm just telling you how it is, he does not value the safety position. Just doesn't. It's not his cup of tea. His cup of tea, being Chris Grier, is the key core pieces on the team. Left tackle, cornerback, edge rusher, clearly based on how he drafted this past year, and quarterback. Obviously wide receiver 1. Safety is not at the top of that list. As good as Jevon Holland is, that is where you maximize your value. Now, how much value can you get for Jevon Holland? That's the bigger question. Because whatever team is trading for him, they're going to have to give him a freshly minted contract for this to work out. Even if a team trades for him but does not give him that long-term deal, and they lose him to free agency, they're on the hook for a compensatory pick probably. So for me, if a team is willing to offer the Dolphins a conditional third that can turn into a second based on him re-signing with that team, I think the Dolphins have to take that deal. I think safety play overall was okay against the Colts. I think Marcus May is doing a decent enough job. Nick Needham saw a little bit of time. You can make it work. Do I want to trade Jevon Holland? Absolutely not. I think he should be a Dolphin for life. But if you sign him to a contract, he's looking for that Antoine Winfield Jr. money because he reset that market and he reset it good. And you're not going to put a franchise tag on him because it is not specific to position. It's based on the group you play in, which is defensive back, and that is over $20 million, and you are not tagging a safety for $20 million. You're just not. And the fact that the Dolphins haven't re-signed him tells you everything you need to know about the direction this team is going to go when it comes to Jevon Holland. So if you're not going to re-sign him, trade him for maximum value right now and find the future replacement for him. I know it sucks, Dolphins fans. I know it sucks. But we got to live in a realistic world where the Miami Dolphins season was really in balance against the Colts. They had every chance to win that game, and they faltered not to get to 3-3, but now sitting at 2-4. With Arizona coming to town. If they lose to Arizona a week before the trade deadline, because the next game is against the Bills in Buffalo, you're staring at 2-6. Season's done. Obviously, a lot can happen. A win against Arizona kind of gives you that little teetering thought. Okay, maybe they're going to be buyers. Maybe they're going to give it a shot. But if they lose that game against Arizona on Sunday, be ready to see some names leaving the Miami Dolphins organization. But it's not the ones we want to see leave, because that's not going to happen, I think, until the offseason. That'll do it for today's show. I want to thank everybody for listening. Be sure to follow me on X at Dolphins Talk Tom. The main account is at Dolphins Talk. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're going to have shows all week long leading up to the game in Arizona. Mike Oliva and myself will be at that game in Arizona. So if you want to see us, we will be at the fan event at Bow Campers in Fort Lauderdale. Again, Mike Oliva and myself will be at Fort Lauderdale Bow Campers for the Fan Fest event that will occur on Saturday afternoon. I believe start time is at 3:30. So if you see us, be sure to stop by, say hi. We'll be happy to chat with you and talk some Miami Dolphins football. I hope you all have a great Tuesday, and we'll talk to you again after a while. Fins up. Let's go.
Thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast. Be sure to visit DolphinsTalk.com every day for all of your latest Miami Dolphins news.